So let us begin our session with prayers. We'll begin our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We are going to have an exciting discussion today. Please brace yourself for a wonderful journey through the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam that we are going to now unleash. A lot of things are going to happen in the verses that we are going to explore today. So just to give a quick recap, as we do every time, because Kalena Alpayusa Sabhya Kalau Asmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagya Upadhrita in Kali Yuga, because the memory is short lived and even the speaker forgets what he spoke. So I'll just do a quick recap based on what I remember. So again, in this episode of the fourth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we took up about Sati's, uh, committing, suicide. So, what led to this incident was the inquisitiveness in the mind of Vidura. And to answer that, the whole backstory was narrated by Maitreya, that how Daksha, although a very charismatic and very powerful leader of the he's a Prajapati, he's the leader of the progenitors, leader of the Devatas. He has been appointed by Brahma to do a very responsible job description, probably the Prime Minister. हाँ, फिर एक बार दक्षा की सरकार. So he has been given that portfolio, but power corrupts an absolute power. So he has got a lot of power, but because he's not grounded, so head is in the sky, but feet are not on the ground. So if someone doesn't bow down to him, so he is not very happy. So he calls for a big yagya, big sacrifice, and everyone, the who's who, appear and arrive in that yagya. And save and except two people, everyone stands up, rising in honor of Daksha. And he is particularly disturbed about Lord Shiva not giving him respect. So although that animosity was already brewing up in him, in Daksha, he could not digest the glory and the respect which Lord Shiva was getting out of his spiritual position. And his ego needed a small spark to start a big fire. So it was that small spark of Lord Shiva not standing up was enough for him to vent out that hidden frustration of a frustrated ego. And this triggered um, one of the most long-lasting and dangerous and destructive conflicts amongst the celestial gods, right? So he takes offense to Shiva not standing up, and then he curses Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva keeps quiet, but his followers can't stay quiet. They are disturbed. So Nandi curses, and Bhrigu counter curses, and this goes on. And then the world war has happened, which is followed by a cold war. The cold war between Daksha and Lord Shiva continues for a very long period of time, probably hundreds of thousands of years. And we discussed that if we don't take proactive steps to patch up the strained relationships, they can go on creating compound interests of problems and bitterness, right? So that's what happened. And then Daksha is again organizing a yagya, Brahaspati yagya, Vajpayee yagya, and so many, all the who's who are invited except Lord Shiva, because that's for whom he is doing it, to show that, see, everyone dances to the tune of my orders. And Sati, seeing everyone going and her sisters going, her aunts going, all the celestial demigods and their wives going, she develops a desire that why not us? And then ensues a discussion between Lord Shiva and Sati where she puts forward that, look, you don't need an invitation. If the invitation card is the problem, we can go anyways. QR code nahi mila to bhi koi baat nahi. We'll go, security will not stop us. But Lord Shiva says, well, if you go, you can go to a relative uninvited, but the relative must not hold any bitterness or grudges against you. If that is the case, it might create problems. And then back and forth, a lot of discussion happens. But Sati, Lord Shiva's very objective and reasonable advice does not settle in her agitated mind. And she feels he is the obstacle and the obstruction to fulfillment of her simple desire to meet her parents. Or that leads to her leaving Lord Shiva abruptly and going on for this, going through the sacrifice. And we discussed that how we all have a material past. When we come to the path of bhakti, we all have our material past, some connections, some habits of the past, some relationships of the past, which we have in knowledge and for good left behind us, but then they still keep haunting us, like provoking us to maybe revisit them, maybe explore, maybe just try out. Hmm? And then sometimes you get provoked and you revisit your past only to realize that it is not that rosy. It is not a rose, it's a cactus. And that's what happened to Sati when she comes to this sacrifice with a lot of expectations that, yes, my father must have dissolved all of that. Lord Shiva is unnecessarily holding so much of apprehension. But then when she reaches there, truth be told, Daksha is with a stiff face, doesn't even look at her, and she's not welcomed by Daksha or any of his associates. It's only her sisters who pay attention to her, come up to her. Her mother comes up to her, embraces her, gives her gifts, but nothing pacifies her. And that's something we discussed that many times. We are so fixated at risk of getting reciprocation from one particular person, and even the rest of the world is very welcoming and warm to us. We don't care. Unless this one person does what I need or desire, everything else is shunyaitam jagat sarvam. The whole world is zero. Of course, without Krishna, the whole world should be zero. But for us, that one person is not Krishna, someone else, right? and and then we discuss that how it is, whatever favor or facility or love we receive from someone, it is Krishna only who is sending that to us, right? So we should see Krishna in every favor or any gesture of warmth that we receive. Hmm. And so, nonetheless, Sati is dissatisfied and distraught at Daksha's behavior. And now she counters and she puts forth, and which we will discuss in today's session. So, is everyone excited to know
Yes.
how Sati, what is Sati's retaliation or her response to this stand of Daksha? So far, Lord Shiva, he kept quiet. Hmm. So, of course, Nandi spoke up, but what is going in Sati's mind, we will come to know today. Let's see. So, as usual, we will have someone read the translation. Shripati Prabhu, 11th verse.
The blessed God has said, Lord Shiva is the most beloved of all living entities. He has no rival. No one is dear to him. No one is very dear to him, and no one is his enemy. No one but you could be envious of such a universal being who is free from all enmity.
Hmm.
She said this to Daksha.
Yes, she is now talking to Daksha, and this is what she's saying. Now, let's read the 12th verse.
Twice born Daksha, a man like you can simply find fault in the qualities of others. Lord Shiva, however, not only finds no faults with others' qualities, but if someone has a little good quality, he magnifies it greatly. Unfortunately, we have found fault with such a great soul.
Wow. Now here we could do a PhD on this verse. This verse is one of the most profound verses which can resolve a lot of problems in our lives. Means we have to apply this because uh, dosham paresham hi guneshu sadhu. Can you give me? दोषान् परेशान् हि गुणेषु साधवो गृह्णन्ति केचे न भवदृशो द्विजा गुणांश्च फल्गुन् बहुलीकरिष्णवो महत्तमान्तेषु अविदाद्भवदगम्. So she says that there are two types of lenses available for us to see this world. Rashangi would like to know what are the two lenses? Not this lens. The lens to see people. One is the vicious lens, and another is the virtuous lens. The lens of virtue and the lens of vices. One lens by which we can see virtues, and one lens by which we can see vices. So before we go into the lenses, um, something about what are these the way of looking at the world. One is we could look at people and see the faults that they have, the vices that they have. And another is we can see the virtues and the potential for good that they have. These are the two different ways with which we could see people and assess people. Hmm. And just as you could, uh, you know, live on two types of food, the junk food, hmm, and the nutritious food, right? So similarly for the body feeds on food, and food has different varieties: food in goodness, passion, ignorance. Similarly, the mind also feeds on thoughts, right? The mind is made up of thoughts. Whatever kind of thoughts you feed, that is the makeup constitution of your mind. What is the constitution of the body? The food that we eat. What is the constitution of the mind? The thoughts that we feed ourselves, right? So we could have junk thoughts, hmm, or we could have nourishing thoughts. So these are the two lenses, the virtue lens and the vicious lens. The vicious lens feeds us negative thoughts, thoughts about faults and vices of others. The virtue lens feeds us on the good qualities and the virtues of others by which we can learn and grow, right? Um, so the vicious lens, the lens of vices, it feeds our mind with negative energy. The virtuous lens, it feeds our mind with positive energy. And the nature of the mind is that whichever energy it feeds on, it likes to have more and more of that energy. Hmm? Because that becomes the survival food for it, right? So now, when one gets habituated to looking at finding faults with others, it becomes a habit. It becomes a compulsive behavior where one cannot but just see and talk about faults of others compulsively, and goes into critical, cynical mood, mm, and constantly complaining, criticizing, moaning, groaning, right? Whereas if someone feeds on the virtuous lens, then one will have positive, hopeful, optimistic picture of the world and the picture of the people one is surrounded with, right? And that becomes one's natural habit. When someone comes up to you, you could be a honeybee or a housefly. The housefly is the vicious lens, the honeybee is a virtuous lens. So if you have a person who is very fit and fine and healthy, who has applied, say, chandan on the forehead, Maha Chandan of the Lord, and is wearing a beautiful Maha flower garland, mm, has applied the khaskhas scent, mm, on the hand, but the person has once pus oozing from his little finger. Where do you think the housefly is going to zoom in? The chandan, the garland, the khas, or the pus? Not the khas, but the pus. Right? It was not intended, unintended. now, now juxtapose that with the honeybee. There's a full garbage trolley. All the unmentionable things are there, mm, which I don't want to turn your stomachs. But there is a flower garland, with some withered flowers, but some fresh flowers. The honeybee, if it has to be there, it will just zoom in into that flower. So this is the virtuous lens, and let's see what are the gradations of these virtuous and vicious lenses. So far, so good. Makes sense. Is everyone able to see? Yeah. Hmm. Okay, so this is the virtuous lens. And when a person has a virtuous lens, then when it comes to the faults of others, what does it see? And when it comes to the good qualities, तभी लेंस में भी अलग अलग ग्रेडेशंस रहते हैं ना. So Sati is talking of gradations of this virtuous lens. दोषान परेशान ही गुणेशु साधो साधवो. किसी में दोष भी है यदि, तो a person can see the potential for good in that person. Example, when Narad Muni saw Dhruva with such a pent up anger towards his stepmother, mm, Suruchi. Yes, yeah, the yeah, the co-author. So when he saw that quality of anger in him, he saw this person is seriously determined. And if he takes that quality of determination for bhakti, he can really achieve Krishna. So although it was a fault, the anger of Dhruva, but then Narada saw no, there is potential for this anger to be used in a productive way, right? So so there are different gradations of this. So let me just put it here. At 1x, you see good qualities. At 2x, you focus on good qualities. At 3x, you magnify good qualities. And at 4x, you invent good qualities. You you become a Einstein. You invent. ignore, accommodate, then see potential and don't see at all. So let me explain what I mean here by each of these things. So when in the beginning stage of having a virtuous lens, we don't need to talk about vicious lens because by default we will come to that also. But the virtuous lens, the beginning stage is by default we know that we are inclined towards, naturally fault दिख जाता है. It's there, but जैसे प्रभु जी का कुर्ता is sparkling clean white. But अगर एक black dot है, my eye is trained to just go and see that black dot. The mango season, we are having mangoes, but that, the shred, if it gets stuck up in one of the teeth, your tongue doesn't go to any of the other tooths. It goes to that particular, stuck up, thread. So we are trained, the mind is trained to look for faults for survival sake or whatever it is. No, that's not the right philosophy. But that's how the conditioned mind is, to look at the faults. But here, knowing that looking at fault is not feeding our mind with positivity, it is feeding our mind with negativity, and we want to come out of that cycle. So we ignore कि हाँ यार किसमें faults नहीं है, पहले तो मुझ में fault है वो कम है क्या, right? So I consciously make an effort to ignore. ठीक है कोई बात नहीं, मैं मेरे को नहीं उसके ऊपर गौर करना, right? Then good qualities क्या है, मैं देखूंगा, right? I'll see what are the good qualities. So consciously ignore the faults and see the good qualities. At 2x, when you get that, when you keep doing that 1x virtuous lens, when you keep consciously ignoring and trying to see the good quality, then what happens is you get a siddhi, you get a 2x virtuous lens, where you learn to accommodate, you learn to accommodate and adjust with the faults of people. Hmm. Where you say कि हाँ, this person is too possessive, but ultimately thinks about my benefit, right? Or my mother is too much like kind of on my case for my studies, but ultimately for what? She is my well wisher, isn't it? So where you adjust and accommodate, where you see the good intention behind that fault, or somehow in your mind you see the good behind the bad, and then good qualities you focus in on them. पहले तो केवल देख रहे थे, फिर अभी उसी पे फोकस करना is more important. Then at 3x you start seeing the potential of even the faults to translate into good qualities. That's where great leaders, whether in organizations or in spiritual institutions, that's what they do. They see the potential. Srila Prabhupada, he went to the West and he was among the hippies and the, completely uh, the footwash of the society, who are not good for anything, who were declared good for nothing. But then Prabhupada took them and saw the potential in them. How he saw the potential? These people, they have rejected the materialistic way of life. They are probably sons of millionaires, but they have seen the hollowness of this material life. Although they might now be exploring drugs and all of those things, but they have realized that just running after, chasing after money and the big American dream is not what is going to give them satisfaction. So they are fit to receive Krishna. So he saw the potential for spirituality in a place where anyone else would see only faults, right? So, and as far as good qualities are concerned, one magnifies. One magnifies. छोटी सी चीज को आपको as if that, uh, you know, is that is such a big thing, and we see um the quality of Srila Prabhupada himself, that he would fan the spark for the American disciples who were very enterprising. He would say, work hard for Krishna. Hmm. What is the use of you being Americans if you don't do something big for Krishna? Hmm. So he would magnify it to them. And this I have experienced after coming to ISKCON, that um, when I was in IIT, that कोई value नहीं देता, भाव नहीं देता. IIT ठीक है भाई, MTech है, anyways, I'm a second class citizen. But when I would come to temple, इतना अरे आएगा प्रभु IIT से. मैंने कहा, अच्छा यार हमारी भी इज्जत है. तो छोटा सा चीज है. बाद में पता नहीं था इतना सेवा भी करवाएंगे. Happy to do that. But that is how Prabhupada engaged. He magnified. Hmm. And Sham Sundar Prabhu writes, chasing the rhinos. So he got them to do big things for Krishna by magnifying the qualities, the potential, the good that they had. Right? And when it comes to a Paramhamsa stage, you don't see any faults anywhere. You only see Krishna. Hmm. Then you are practically disconnected from this material world. And even where there are no good qualities, you invent. That person himself is surprised. "अरे, ये मेरे में कब से है?" And by that, they induce some good quality. Right? And I've seen some devotees who are like that. Like when my mother had come after me joining, she was very upset. Probably she's online also. But but there's one devotee who, there are a couple of devotees who went up and spoke to her with so much of, appreciation, that she was very happy. And similarly, when Brahmanand Prabhu and Gargmuni Prabhu, right, when they joined, and Prabhupada had to, meet their mother. So he, made her feel so appreciated. And then she was happy for both of her sons to be given in Krishna's service. So this is how the lens of virtue works. Now let us go to the other lens. तो इसमें ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बस इसको लेने का, इधर चिपकाने का. और वो भी इट्स नॉट मच डिफरेंट. इग्नोर, नहीं अकोमोडेट नहीं, वो तो उसको मिनिमाइज करने का है. हाँ हाँ, वो सब दिखा हुआ है. सी स्कोप ऑफ फॉल्ट्स, जहाँ पे जो पर्सन सीज द पोटेंशियल फॉर गुड क्वालिटी, दिस पर्सन सीज द स्कोप ऑफ फॉल्ट्स. लेट्स सी हाउ. मतलब वही है, रिवर्स कर दिया. ऑप्टिक्स, उसका रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है उसको. जो जो चीज द पर्सन इज डूइंग अबाउट गुड क्वालिटीज, दिस पर्सन इज डूइंग अबाउट फॉल्ट्स. 1x पे फॉल्ट दिख रहा है, 2x पे फॉल्ट पे ही फोकस हो रहा है, 3x पे वो फॉल्ट को मैग्नीफाई किया जा रहा है, और 4x पे फॉल्ट नहीं है उसको भी इन्वेंट किया जा रहा है. राइट? एंड 1x पे गुड क्वालिटीज को इग्नोर किया जा रहा है. दिख रहा है लेकिन नहीं देखना है, मुझे नहीं देखना है. साधना कर रहा है वो व्यक्ति, मुझे अच्छा गुण नहीं देखना है किसी में. 2x पे वो है, उसको मिनिमाइज करना. उसको समवन कम्स अप एंड सेज कि अरे दिस पर्सन इज द जीनियस, दिस पर्सन इज वेरी इंटेलिजेंट. हाँ हाँ, बहुत प्राउड है उसको, बहुत घमंड है अपनी. बहुत देखे हैं ऐसे. यार समवन इज सर्विंग वेरी नाइसली, कि अरे उसको तो प्रभु जी को मस्का लगाना है और कुछ नहीं. सो मिनिमाइज, somehow the other, bring down that person from that pedestal. Right? Although you see good quality, it's a passive appreciation. Envy. Envy is basically appreciation, but in a uh, indirect way, indirect appreciation. Then see scope of fault. कि Person is doing a lot of austerities, निर्जल एकादशी कर रहा है, every एकादशी is doing निर्जल. तपस्या में क्रोध छुपा होता है. कर लो तप. इस तप से इनका क्रोध बढ़ने वाला है, fall down हो जाएगा. Right? This is how mind can trip us. And don't see good qualities at all. ये सिद्धि जब आ जाती है पूरी, जो परमहंस स्टेज पे, ये परम कौवा स्टेज पे, राइट, कि इसमें फॉल्ट्स इन्वेंट किए जाते हैं और जो अच्छे गुण हैं वो बिल्कुल दिखाई नहीं देते. सो दिस इज हाउ these two things work. And if you look at how, like, we can have for each and every of these virtuous things, how Srila Prabhupada saw the potential when Hara Prabhu, he was a thief. The ISKCON TV that we know, जिसमें बहुत सारे फिल्म्स और वीडियोस एक्सेट्रा बनाए गए हैं. सो ITV नाम है उसका. सो ITV, the behind this ITV is Hara Prabhu. And if you look at the backstory of Hara Prabhu, he was a thief. And he was in jail and he saw a Back to Godhead magazine जिसमें प्रभुपाद का फोटो है wearing a golden watch. So he thought, यार ये गुरु का एक golden watch चाहिए मुझे. And then he came out of the jail searching for Prabhupada. He came to the Juhu temple and asking, I want to meet this Swamiji. Photo dikha ke, this Swamiji. Swamiji ne go. And then devotees were, those times, like there were 20 American devotees staying at Juhu, but hardly any Indians. So they were, very, very excited. Arey, someone is coming searching for Prabhupada. They said, come, you stay with us. Prabhupada will be coming in a few weeks, so we will introduce you. And then he said, no, where is he right now? He's in Hyderabad. So he went to meet Prabhupada, and then, and then started living with devotees. One day, somehow, I can get this watch. And then by association, he kept serving. In association, and he kept serving and was in touch with such a pure devotee. Gradually, his desire to steal kept going away, but the habit was there. So he would be sent to purchase some groceries, and every day he would, while buying groceries, he would also get some Cadbury eclairs and other things. So once he was just tending the chain, and this Cadbury came out of his pocket, and he was caught by Prabhupada. But nonetheless, he he had a difficulty that in the night time he never slept, and devotees would sleep in the night and wake up in the Mangal Arati. So he sleeps at 4 o'clock. He's awake all night. So what to do? He went and told Prabhupada, it's very difficult for me. Prabhupada said, I have a service for you. And the entire night I'm translating the Srimad Bhagavatam, and these dogs are barking, and it is creating nuisance for me to focus. So you anyway stay awake all night. So better you chase these dogs away so that I can focus on translation. I was very happy. ये तो this is something है. ये तो मंदिर में चपाती बेलते रहो, यहाँ पे कुछ तो क्षत्रिय वाला काम है. He was very happy, and gradually he got fully purified, and then Prabhupada initiated him. Devotees were surprised. He was actually in the kitchen, and Prabhupada sent for him, call him for initiation, and the temple president was saying, Prabhupada, do you know what is his background? I know everything. I am your guru. So this is how seeing the potential in a person. Prabhupada never rejected. There was a person, basically a drug addict, hippie. His name was Crazy Peter. He was practically mad. He would just, kind of would cry out. Prabhupada would go for morning walk, and he would go and catch Prabhupada's feet and start crying. And devotees were very, kind of wanted him to keep away from Prabhupada. Then he would come to temple and say, I want to stay here, don't send me away. Devotees were chasing him away. Once Prabhupada saw, and he said, allow him to stay here. And how can someone like this who is half mad, who is a drug addict, stay in the temple premises. But Prabhupada saw the potential. And uh, the surprising and the magical thing is this crazy Peter gradually got purified, became sane, and then became a Sanskrit scholar whose name is Kushakrita Prabhu. And he has translated the maximum amount of Sanskrit literatures into English for kind information. Kushakrita Prabhu. If you look in the folio, he has translated tons and tons of literatures into English. So that's what happens when one has a virtuous lens.
Whose stories was previous?
Hara Prabhu,
Hara Prabhu.
Haradas Prabhu. And as far as looking at the faults or inventing faults, मतलब शिशुपाल तो भगवान ने गोवर्धन उठाया तो वो बोले कि अरे वो तो कोई मशरूम उठा लिया होगा, and somehow minimizing. So yeah, so we have these two choices whether to use the virtuous lens or the vicious lens, and it is feeding the mind. Our mind is definitely, it needs to be fed on thoughts, but a kind of thought say it is going to become plump and diabetic and whatnot. Another kind of thought is going to make it agile and optimistic and very progressive. So we need to choose our thoughts wisely. Although by default, our setting and the setting of the world is to chase the faults. But if we want to grow, if we want to really spiritually evolve, we need to consciously replace the lens from being vicious to virtuous. Consciously choose to see the good, consciously choose to ignore the faults. That is a sadhana which is as important as chanting Hare Krishna, because the first offense to the chanting of the holy names is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy names. So it's very essential. So far, so good. Makes sense. So now the question is, how do we actually go about developing the virtuous lens and eliminating the vicious lens? This is a very important thing. So for that, I have just put together a few thoughts. So first is use the fault finding tendency. We should use. वो लेंस का भी जरूरत है, उसको फेंकने का जरूरत नहीं है, बट दैट लेंस को जस्ट टर्न करना है. जिस लेंस से हम दुनिया को देखते हैं उस लेंस से अपने आप को देखना है, जिस लेंस से अपने आप को देखते हैं उससे दुनिया को देखना है. With two lawyers sitting amongst us, I'm inspired to use a law example. When it comes to the faults of others, we become judges sitting on the high pedestal. And when it comes to our own faults, we become highly qualified lawyers, advocates from NLUs, right? So when it comes to faults of others, we should become advocates. ठीक है यार, सुधर जाएगा. ठीक है यार, किसमें गलती नहीं है. ठीक है, उसमें ये अच्छी बातें तो है, right? As an advocate, you want to protect and safeguard the interest of your client, right? But अगर आप अपने ही लॉयर बन जाते हो तो क्या होता है कि we end up safeguarding our faults rather than ourselves. And when it comes to the faults of ourselves, we should become judges. Probably this is not the right thing to do, or I could have improved on this. So there is something called Zeus fault in Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, उनका ऐसा एक ये है कि भगवान ने जब मनुष्यों को बनाया तो उनको ना साथ में एक दो पोटलियां दी. पोटलियां होती ना, तो वो गठरियां, कपड़े की गठरियां, उसमें कुछ वजन है, और वो वजन दे दिया, एक लकड़ी दे दी, तो वो पोटलियां ये लकड़ी पे रख के all humans are carrying. So आपको पता है what is there inside those sacks? पोटरियों में क्या है? In one sack is the faults of others, and another sack is our own faults. So while we live in this world, this is a burden we have to carry. The fault of others and our own faults. Burden. Definitely. It's not a pleasing thing to carry faults. लेकिन जब भगवान ने हमको दिया, so it was such that the faults of others are at the back and our own faults are ahead of us so that we can see. But then what humans did is they turned it around. दूसरों की गलतियां सामने रखी थी और अपनी पीछे. So God's design was that we see our own faults and ठीक है दूसरों का गलतियां हैं but मेरा is more important to deal with. But we have reversed it. दूसरों का गलती पहले सुधारो, मेरा चलेगा. Right? So we need to become judges for others and advocate for नहीं. We need to become advocates for others and judges for ourselves. We should judge others by their intentions and ourselves by our actions rather than judging ourselves by intention. मेरा तो intention ही ठीक था, गलती हो गया तो क्या? Right? So this is something we can do. Both these lenses, don't throw them away. Just reverse. Use the vicious lens for ourselves. Use the virtuous lens for others. Very simple. वो लेकिन यहाँ पे एक्टिवेट करना पड़ेगा. We have to remind ourselves, okay, ये कौन सा लेंस मैं यूज कर रहा हूँ या कर रही हूँ for this situation. I need to change the lens. We are expert. We have 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x सब available है. You just need to use it in the right place. Okay, and then so this is the first thing we can do, the ZS fault correction, reversing the lenses. Second thing which we can do is, okay, there are faults in people. We are not asking you to be in a denial mode कि नहीं है, कहीं नहीं, सब अच्छा है, सब वैकुंठ है. नहीं है, लोगों में भी fault है. You can't just keep denying and whitewashing, right? But there's a different way in which we can look at the faults. Henry Ford once said, don't just look for a fault, also look for a remedy. So when you look at a fault and you just want the fault and you wish the fault to grow, that's a vicious attitude. But when you look at a fault, you also must look for a remedy. Because when you look at a fault, it becomes your responsibility, moral responsibility to help that person. You can look down at others, but only when you want to give a hand to raise them above. So that is something we can do. Ask ourselves, do I have the right intention? When I'm looking at the fault of others, yes, we can. But first of all, do I have the right intention to help this person? If not, let me stay away. That is their personal life, private life. I don't want to interfere. But if I have the intention to help them, ask yourself these three questions. Ask yourself whether you have the right authority. Intention है किसी को सुधारने का, आपके पास authority भी होना चाहिए ना. So there are three types of authorities. One is ethical authority, emotional authority, and executive authority. Let me explain what ethical authority means. Okay, we have that famous story about a saint and a mother brings her child who eats a lot of sugar, and the saint says, okay, bring him after 1 week. After 1 week, she brings him and the saint simply tells, beta, don't eat too much sweet, it will spoil your teeth. And he says, and the child stops eating. Now the mother is perplexed that ये तो आप एक हफ्ते पहले भी बोल सकते थे, एक हफ्ता रुकने का क्या जरूरत था? He said, actually, I was also eating sweet. So I didn't have the ethical authority to instruct him. So when we are pointing out a fault of others, before that we need to do a soul searching, that am I indulging in this myself also? If so, let me take time to reform myself, then I'll think about him or her. Right? That is the first thing. That becomes a trigger for us to reform. That's okay, that's good. Now, second is okay, ethical authority. You are not doing it. Take care. Emotional authority. Do you have a relationship with that person? Hmm? Unless you invest, you can't withdraw. Hmm? मतलब you have to invest something, ना? Right? अगर आपने आपके बैंक अकाउंट में 100 रुपए, आप 1000 रुपए विड्रॉ नहीं कर सकते, राइट? क्रेडिट कार्ड वाले रिलेशन हमको नहीं चाहिए क्योंकि वो बाद में पीछे पड़ते हैं डंडा लेके, right? So we have to invest first, and we need to ask whether I have invested enough emotionally in this person to be able to correct and withdraw. Because when you withdraw, when you correct, you are making a withdrawal. Right? So that is the emotional authority, and third is executive authority. That are you in a managerial position, superior managerial position, right? For example, a child may feel that हाँ, मैं तो ये गलती नहीं करता है, नहीं करती, हाँ, और इमोशनल बॉन्डिंग भी है, तो लेट मी गो एंड करेक्ट मम्मी एंड पापा, राइट? बट डू आई हैव द अथॉरिटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ माय एज, right? Or in terms of, so in an organization it could be a junior correcting the senior, which may not be the right thing to do. He could probably report it to another senior who could then convey it to the authority, right? So these three will help us make the right channel. So first of all, we need to ask ourselves, do I have the intention to help this person? If yes, then it's justified to look at faults. And then only intention is not enough. Do I have the right authority also to correct? So these are two factors by which we can translate our vicious lens into a virtuous lens and have a great experience, have a mind full of positivity and optimism. So what do we do? Do we take questions here, or any questions, comments, reflections?
Minor question.
Yes.
This verse, Sati is referring to Daksha is twice born.
Hmm.
What is the meaning and then what is she happening?
Okay. Good, you reminded about the verse, क्योंकि हमने lenses को verse से connect नहीं किया. So here she is saying, let us go through the verse. मतलब whatever we are speaking is derived from the verse actually. दोषान परेशान ही गुणेशु साधु. साधु लोग जो होते हैं वो क्या करते हैं, किसी के दोष में भी गुण देखते हैं कि ये दोष भी गुण में ट्रांसफॉर्म हो सकते हैं, जैसे हमने प्रभुपाद के उदाहरण देखे, हरा प्रभु और एक्सेट्रा. गृणंति केचित, देखते हैं कौन, जो साधु, न भवदृशो, आपके जैसे लोग नहीं देखते ऐसा. दक्षा को बोल दिया आपके जैसे लोग नहीं देख सकते, ये शिव जी जैसे लोग हैं वो ऐसा देखते हैं. गुणांश फल्गु बहुली कृष्ण, अगर किसी में छोटा सा भी कुछ अच्छा है ना, बहुली बड़ा कर देते हैं, मैग्नीफाई कर देते हैं, राइट? सो व्हाट वी सॉ उसमें सी, फोकस, मैग्नीफाई एंड इन्वेंट. सो दोष भी है तो उसमें गुण इन्वेंट कर लेते हैं, या और अगर छोटे गुण है तो उसको मैग्नीफाई करके बड़ा कर देते हैं. ये कौन? साधु लोग करते हैं. और उसका रिवर्स है, वो करते हैं महात्मास तेषु अविदत भवादघम, कि लेकिन जो असाधु लोग हैं, हाँ, वो क्या करते हैं, बड़े बड़े अच्छे गुण हैं उसको या तो मिनिमाइज, डिमिनिश, या उसमें भी फॉल्ट्स देखेंगे. So this is what she says, and she calls Daksha as Dvija here. Now, what is the meaning of Dvija? Ja means Janma or birth. Dvi means two. Twice born. Dvija means twice born. So twice born, मतलब क्या पिछली लाइफ की बात कर रहे हैं? नहीं. In this life also we are born twice. One through our material mother and father, biological mother and father. Another is through our spiritual master, the Guru. The Guru gives us a second birth. Huh? Enlightenment. The Guru gives us Chakshudana Deludeji. He gives us a spiritual vision, a spiritual reality. Hmm? So we receive a material existence through our biological parent, but we receive access to a spiritual existence through the spiritual master. So that's why initiation, diksha, or coming in contact with the teachings of a guru, that gives us a second birth. It's a second life. So she's actually saying you are a Dvija in name only. You have been initiated, but you are acting with a very ignorant mindset.
Yogi, but Mother Sati was saying his herself was finding faults in Daksha. So what is the
Wonderful. Wonderful. Actually, this is a very intelligent question. And you see, Prabhupada is answering the same question in a purport. I'll read it for you. See, this is how we should think, as a detective, trying to understand. In the verse 17, Prabhupada writes in the purport, the argument offered by Sati is that a person who vilifies a great personality is the lowest of all creatures. अगर किसी का fault ढूंढ रहे हैं, you are lowest of all creatures. But by the same argument, Daksha could also defend himself by saying that since he was a Prajapati, the master of living and creatures, and one of the great officers of the universal affairs, his position was so exalted that Sati should accept his good qualities instead of vilifying him. The same principle should apply to Sati also. The answer to that argument is that Sati was not vilifying but defending. She was not, vilifying. She was defending Lord Shiva's position. And she was showing the mirror to Daksha that this is how you have been finding faults in a person who is full of good qualities. She, Prabhupada, actually, that's why she gives up her body. In response to the fault finding nature of Daksha, she says, I have received this body from this Daksha. I want to cut off the connection with this body because this body makes me feel ashamed of my connection with Daksha. So I don't want to have anything with this body or with Daksha. That's how she emulates herself. So basically, in defense, when someone criticizes or blasphemes a great devotee, the further verses describe you have three options. You choose which one. One is to close your ears and run away from them. Second is, if you are little Kshatriya type, then take a sword and fight, kill that person. And the third is that you kill yourself.
what is the best in the eyes of Dharma according to you?
Depending on your position. If a Kshatriya is there and if he says that, okay, I'll kill myself or I'll run away, no. For Brahmana or someone who is more saintly, just run away from there. But for a Kshatriya, he must fight. He must fight where there is blasphemy. When Shishupal was blaspheming Krishna, Bhima was trembling with rage. Krishna, मैं देख लूंगा. And then Krishna, cut off. Because if anyone else would have, the blood would have fallen. And then the entire Ashwamedha Yagya would have been spoiled. So Krishna used the Sudarshan Chakra and, खून भी नहीं गिरा. Right? So yeah, but we don't need to be so radical in our approach because this is Kali Yuga. अगर ये अप्रोच दिया जाएगा तो सब एक दूसरे को मार दें. कोई बचेगा नहीं. So we have to use Lord Chaitanya's approach. Even when Nityanand Prabhu was beaten by Jagai in Madhai, what to speak of blasphemy, was beaten by Madhai. Blood was oozing out. Hmm? And Lord Chaitanya wanted to kill him. Nityanand Prabhu said, ऐसा करोगे तो यहीं पे कल के अवतार बनना पड़ेगा. So deliver by giving Krishna prem. And so in this yuga, we can't fight tooth and nail with people for blasphemy. We have to trick people to somehow come in contact with some mercy of the Lord, either Krishna Prasad, Krishna Nam, Krishna Katha, and then gradually kill the demon in their hearts. Because this process is very powerful. No demon has the power to keep blaspheming. Hmm? You cut off, you can. What is the point cutting off someone's head? Cut off their atheistic mindset. That is real war. And sophisticated weapons are available in these books, by which you can fight out and have an exciting, adventurous, you know, journey in your life. So we need not just keep playing dumb and dummy video games where you are just fighting. क्या क्या अलग अलग नाम से आते हैं आजकल, PUBG, etc. etc. Some just um, imaginative games, but this is real warfare where you kill the demoniac mindset. Okay, we have a question. Uh, okay, if you go from 1x planes to 2x, do you still have the 1x qualities? Yes, मतलब 1x. Naturally, अगर आपने 2 नंबर का चश्मा पहना है तो जो 1 नंबर से दिखता है वो तो दिखेगा ही, right? You get progressively more refined in your way of looking at things. Yeah. Okay, anything else that we can discuss today?
You told that after that first sacrifice, it was like after 1,000 years, the second sacrifice was performed. So how come that so much period of 1,000 years?
Yeah, at that grand level where the entire universe was involved.
But how can
IPLs कितना होता है साल में? एक ही बार होता है. तो वो मतलब उनका मतलब इतना grand scale पे some events they happen only after a certain period.
How can one live for such a long period?
Lifespan. हाँ, lifespan चींटी का lifespan अलग है, humans का lifespan अलग है, ठीक है. तो चींटी के लिए मतलब for a small a fly or an ant, the entire 100-year experience of taking births, having some fun play group with small kid ants, and then growing up and becoming baby ants, and then becoming adult ants, having a spouse and having kids, and then getting more and more sugar crystals and amassing them, and then finally growing old and dying. The entire life cycle which we go through, they also go through. For us, that life cycle spans for some 70, 80, 90 years, 100 years. For them, it all happens within a period of few days. Right? Yes or no? And के case में या फिर किसी fly के case में, the entire life cycle, they live the full life which you live, but the duration is different. So similarly, the devatas, they also have their life cycle, but that spans for thousands of years. So we are practically ants in comparison to devatas. पैर के नीचे कुचल देंगे पता भी नहीं लगेगा. That's what happens, right? Tsunami ये आया वो आया कुछ earthquakes. Thousands of people चींटियों की जैसे चले गए. Okay, so there is a question by Mohar. I want to reform myself, but how do I remain resolute to make progress in that area? Okay, how to stay determined? So there are 4 stages of transformation. First is unconscious incompetence, then is conscious incompetence, then there is conscious competence, and then there is unconscious competence. The first stage is we are having certain shortcomings and inadequacies and faults, and we are not even aware of it. Unconscious incompetence. One devotee gave a nice example. He said, sometimes people have the habit, पता ही नहीं है ये चल रहा है कभी भी कहीं भी चल रहा है unconscious incompetence. But then someone tells, अरे क्या चल रहा है गंदी चीज है. So then नहीं, you are conscious, but then you can't give it up. Then there is conscious competence. So उंगली को पकड़ के नहीं, I should not do this. Then there is unconscious incompetence. You can't even think of doing it, right? So whenever you have to change, the first step is realizing the need for change. So in your case, when you realize that, okay, you have an area, a problem which you need to lock horns with or change, that's the first step. Congratulate yourself for that. And then then there are different ways by which you can move from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. That's the most struggleful period. Conscious incompetence है मतलब you are conscious about your lacunae, but then how do you start working? It is process of sadhana, by which you keep making small improvements. If you had if you have a habit of procrastination, or if you have a habit of being not being hardworking, being lazy, right? So you can't overnight jump to become a very hardworking and enterprising person. You have to consciously give yourself push, धीरे 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 धीरे, right? To incrementally improve your nature to work hard. So आप धीरे धीरे, when you keep making those steps as sadhana, then you come to a stage of conscious competence. You are able to give in 6 hours, 7 hours of hard work every day, right? And then that hard work becomes your second nature. You don't even need to think about it. To be lazy and procrastinating becomes a something foreign to you, alien to you. So so yeah, that's how you do it. Take it as a process of sadhana. Take it as a tapasya, that I want to change this, and make small advancement. Don't create a big phantasmagorical and like kind of I'll jump from this to directly a higher level. Gradually make small advances and keep going. Sripati Prabhu, can you check with kitchen? So we will close here. If there are, yes, one question.
What is so in the virtue sense, when we are supposed to look at others and उनकी गलतियों को अगर देखना भी है तो रेमेडी के साथ देखते हुए, लेकिन उनकी गुड को देखना. Where is that line when we use that lens, लेकिन उसके बाद it is different from recognizing whom to not associate with based on their current level and based on where I am. क्योंकि अगर उस लेंस को हर जगह यूज करेंगे तो फिर we might end up associating with anyone and everyone halting our spiritual progress.
Yes. बहुत very thoughtful question, right? This is the idea is that we are using this lens for protecting and safeguarding our own mind from being corrupted by the negativity and the faults. Out there, we are not denying that there are millions of faults out there, but we are choosing to feed our mind on the right kind of thoughts. So it is more to do with ourselves than to do with the other person. right? To safeguard our own interests. You want to now for some people, जैसे हमने इधर देखा था in the virtue lens, 1x पे क्या करते हो? You ignore the faults. किसी व्यक्ति में फॉल्ट है, आप उसको इग्नोर करते हो, राइट? है ना? सो इग्नोर करने के लिए, बट वो व्यक्ति में इतना फॉल्ट है, फॉल्ट का भंडार है, तो उसके फॉल्ट को नहीं, उसी को इग्नोर करना पड़ेगा, टू स्टे अवे फ्रॉम दैट पर्सन, बिकॉज दैट पर्सन हैज all of those negative habits and tendencies. So one way of ignoring the faults is to ignore the person whole and soul, and then stay away. And then you choose people with whom you are relatively more comfortable seeing the good qualities. Ultimately, you want to gravitate towards such a environment in terms of people, in terms of environment where there is more predominance of good qualities, so that it makes it easier. नहीं तो आपका mind ही adjust करता रहेगा, 4x लगाओ या 3x लगाओ. So better to have an environment and people who have naturally good qualities, so that you don't have to strain yourself. And then with these people also, because the tendency is here, उसमें अच्छे क्वालिटीज होंगे तो भी आप फॉल्ट देखेंगे, तो इसके लिए उनके लिए हमको वो रिफाइनमेंट यूज करना है, राइट?
It's more to get in the heart, so
Yeah, yes.
and look for because
Samadarshana.
Just an observation. I think the bandwidth to exercise that choice is also very less in our lives. For instance, like our family is given to us. We can't change our family members. In our job, we have to work with these people only. We have to see their faces. If we had a fight with them previously, we have to work with them the next day. So that 8-9 hours work, or in our institution, if we are a student, so we have to get taught by the same teacher or sit with the same. So, and then we have to sleep for the remaining 8 hours. So the remaining time is only left for us to choose. So I think these principles can help us, this 1x, 2x, to survive during those that time when we are there with the people, which maybe because of our karmic account we are stuck with.
Yes, to some extent, it will definitely help us to adjust and accommodate with the people we have been destined to be to stick around with, or we are put in a position to be around. But then with our free will, we could also change the setup of our environment. If it is too toxic, if people are too negatively oriented, then you can work on gradually seeing if you can make any adjustments. So it can work both ways. Within your family members also, you would then gradually be inclined towards spending more time with people who are more spiritually inclined, and then create a friendship with community of devotees, right? So I think let's close here. It's getting late. Hare Krishna. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. Thank you all, to online and everyone who has come here for joining us for this session.
Praise Sasikram Prabhuji ki jai.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Shubhangi, I answered that. Shubhangi is saying that we can't always choose. Sometimes we have to be with people, the same thing which you said. So yeah, we answered that also. Hare Krishna.